Welcome. Today we're about to deal with the project investment implementation part 1. As you can notice, we have reached the fourth stage of the investment cycle. So after the identification, the preparation, the appraisal and the promotion we've seen so far, we can finally deal with the transformation of our ideas into actual activities. In short, we're going to discuss about implementation. Part 1 refers to the fact that, as you will see, this subject will be split in two classes, part 1 and part 2, which is going to be the next one. So during our first part of the implementation analysis, we're going to focus on two main elements. The first one, the implementation process and its cycle aspects. The second, the planning aspect and the work breakdown structure, WBS. As we will see, the first part refers to the fact that investment should be considered as a cycle, as we are familiar with already, as well as implementation, which is the actual transformation of ideas into actions, requires a structured cycle as well. The work breakdown structure, WBS, is the most diffuse tool for analyzing the activities and the sub-activities underlying and underneath a project. And it's a tool which is very powerful because it's able to depict the whole structure of the investment. Let's start with the cyclical aspects of the implementation. Implementation process and its cyclical aspects. The main idea is that project implementation has to reach specific objective, build the plan, and prepare for production. This is just an example. It's the easiest way for dealing with investment initiatives. So the point is that we assume that our investment, the project we are trying to finance and to deploy, is about the construction of a new plant. Mobilize and employ resources. So we start from the objective, and then we have to identify the necessary resources for creating this plant, in our example. As we will see, we have to employ technical, financial, human, and intellectual resources in order to accomplish our mission, in order to reach our goal. Beginning and end, start and completion dates. The implementation phase in its actual and concrete aspects pass through the definition of a time plan as well. So once we have established the main actions and the main resources to employ, we have to schedule the activities by fixing starting and ending completion date. Consistently, we have to deal with budget constraints. So by definition, an investment requires a finite number of resources, which are scarce by definition. So budget constraints have to do with the fact that we have a certain amounts of capital at our availability, that the cash flows related to this capital investment, to this financial investment, are structured in a scheduled way, which means that each day of the project is not given that we have the whole amount of requested capital at our disposal. That's why it's so important to combine, in this first implementation phase, the operational activities with the financial requirements. That's why we start from the objective, as we've seen, and we end our implementation cycle with the budget constraints by evidencing, as we will see momentarily, all the financial and operational requirements of the project. The project implementation cycle could be depicted as shown in this exhibit. This is a general framework for understanding the several phases of this cycle and for deepening and considering in a proper way all the necessary relations connecting all those boxes, connecting all those activities. So let's start with the analysis of our project implementation cycle. At the beginning, as you can see, we deal with goals, strategies, and objectives. Now, the investment itself is aimed to fulfill some requirements or is aimed to reach some targets, is aimed to create something, which is the main substantive objective of the investment itself. Since the investments are hosted and developed within organizations, it's very important to understand the general strategies of the organizations and their relations with the specific objectives of the investments. So it's for the goals. Goals could be considered the institutional goals, the mission of the organization, or the vision of the organization, and their own relations with the specific objectives of the investment project. Implementation as an activity requires that after having fixed the goals, the strategies, and the objectives, the organization has to structure a system of activities which are meant to realize everything is necessary in order to reach such objectives. Activities could be described in an abstract way. I mean, the definition of the activities is just a list of necessary steps in order to reach the objectives. Another crucial part of the implementation cycle is the definition of resources as well. So resources should be mobilized both internally and externally. I mean, the company itself could have at its own disposal the necessary resources for deploying the activities related to the investments and to the objectives at the end. Sometimes when the organization doesn't have the necessary endowment of resources, those kind of resources should be mobilized from the external environment. Again, investors, financiers, suppliers, and so on. So the resource mobilization, which is the third stage of this cycle, is crucial. The combination between the available resources and the scheduled activities is the actual implementation of the project. So implementation takes place, as we will see, according to the structure of activities, according to the schedule of the activities, according to the priorities that the sponsors and the managers of the investment have planned. So, this phase could be considered as preparatory to the implementation, which is the actual part of this cycle. Implementation implies real-life actions, so actual activities put into place, which means that in a consistent time span, we can measure our results of our activities. So the performance appraisal here, the performance measurement, is related to the aspects of the investments that we have planned. Now, what is very important to understand is that those measurements are related to the criteria that we pick up considering the different participants to the project. So we might have operational measures, we might have financial measures, we might have economic measures, we might have regulatory related measures. According to the partner, we're going to show our results. Of course, the measurement implies the definition and the provision of measuring instruments. So the results themselves could improve the way we measure the performance of the investment by refining and improving and tuning the instruments we are using for conducting such activity. That's why from the measuring instruments we might produce indicators, and those indicators might match the criteria that we fixed for our partners. So if we consider not only the deployment of these boxes depicting activities, but also the connections amongst these boxes, we might have this operational cycle of implementation, which is in this exhibit colored as white arrows connecting the different activities. This is the main cycle of the implementation, from the objective to the results. The measuring instruments are the connecting ring between this operational cycle, the mainstream, and the feedback loop. What is a feedback loop? Feedback loop is about collecting information and returning information and signals to our partners. So the feedback loop is made of results, instruments, indicators, and criteria. And this loop is going alongside the investment schedule and is accompanying all the whole investment activities. So, in short, we have the implementation cycle made of goals, strategies, and objectives, activities, resources, implementation, results. And then we have the feedback loop, which is made of results, instruments, indicators, and criteria. This is a very general framework which is extensively used for depicting and describing the several activities related to whatever investment project. When it comes to implementation planning, we have another framework that we might consider. Techno-economic feasibility study, work breakdown structure, task responsibility assignment, work breakdown structure, again, project implementation plan. Let's start from the beginning. The techno-economic feasibility study, it's the sum, the conceptual sum of the technical analysis and the economic and financial analysis that we've seen already during the appraisal stage. From this feasibility study, we could obtain the work breakdown structure that, as we've seen, it's a way of destructuring the activities of the project, and we'll see an example momentarily. Work breakdown structure is about activity. Then, as we've seen already, we need resources for making this plan to become real. So we have the task responsibility assignment. These are the people exposed to these activities which have been planned during the techno-economic feasibility study. So here we have a refinement of the work breakdown structure, and ultimately we have the project implementation plan. The project implementation plan considers both the activities to be put into place and the resources, technical and human, to be employed in such a process. As all the plans, also the project implementation plan is made of objectives, activities, and related times. So it's a plan of the activity to be carried out and a schedule of monitoring of the expected results. If we consider the project implementation plan, let's observe what is the purpose of implementation planning. So, we can distinguish between the preliminary plan and, as we will see momentarily, a detailed plan. The preliminary plan is aimed to estimate time to complete the project. So it's an investigation on how and when we can start the planned activities. The estimation involves also the start of production. So once we have established the overall time to complete the project, we have to fix a specific date for the beginning of the activities. The starting point is relevant both from an operational and a financial point of view. From an operational point of view, it's the beginning of all the scheduled activities, and it's the mobilization of all the involved resources. From a financial point of view, it's also important because it implies the scheduled activities connected to the financial negotiation. So, in sum, the preliminary plan is relevant both from an operational and a financial standpoint. The preliminary plan is followed by the detailed plan. The detailed plan, it's a more precise and deep scheduling of the analysis. So it's the detailed structure of activities and events. When it comes to activities, we can consider the activities as the necessary steps to be taken in order to complete the investment. When it comes to events, they are both related to the expected results of the investments, state or advancement of our construction, for example. But when it comes to events, we can have also some unexpected events that could be included in the detailed plan. In such a situation, we have the so-called if-then scenarios. So if something happens, then the plan itself is giving some backup solutions. Resource planning. For each activity and events, some resources have to be deployed. So it's the scheduled and precise usage of such resources. Timing of cost and finance. As I was saying some moments ago, the operational aspects cannot be considered separate from the financial aspects. So the time structure is evidencing both the cost situation and the finance situation. Feedback and control mechanism. As we've seen already, it's very important to activate some feedback mechanisms. Feedback mechanisms are crucial for refining the instruments we're using, but they're crucial also for informing and keeping updated our partners. So, as the investment is proceeding, we need to plan some structured time moments for investing our resources and updating our partners. The planning aspect and work breakdown structure, WBS. From the plan, in terms of techno-economic feasibility, we move now to the planning aspects of operation. The work breakdown structure, WBS, describes the hierarchy of tasks necessary to complete the project. So, the investment implies the development of a task. This general task could be structured and decomposed in many subtasks. And each subtask could be, again, restructured into several subtasks and so on. So there is a structural hierarchy, as we will see momentarily, of subtasks with some precedences and some time constraints. So, in details, the WBS work breakdown structure organizes jobs into manageable units. So the aim is to organize the general task into subtasks that could be managed by the available resources. Analyzes the precedence requirements. This is very important. If we consider that the investment could be depicted as a sequence of steps, it's not given that all these steps are strictly sequential, one with the other. So if we have, let's say, 4 steps, and we label them as A, B, C, D, it's not given that A is the input for B, and the output of B is the input for C, and the output of C is the input for D. So, we do not have always a strictly sequential scheme if we have different subtasks. It might happen that the activity number D, or labeled as D, cannot be put into place before B and C are completed at the same time. So we have a structure in terms of hierarchy between the units and the subunits, the tasks and the subtasks. But we also have a time structure which is made of precedences and requirements. The work breakdown structure is able to depict this complex situation: hierarchy and precedences. The WBS, work breakdown structure, help estimate time to complete each job. So for each subunit, we have a specific timing for completing the activities. If we regroup the subunits into bigger units, more significant units, the time for completing the task assigned to the unit must be the sum of the single times related to the subunits plus the time demanded by the coordination activities. So if we have again 4 phases, even though those phases are strictly sequential, A, B, C, D, and each of these phases takes 2 hours, it's not said that the general time, the total time for completing the activity is just 8 hours. Because we have to add the coordination time, the coordination cost, and the setup cost occurring at an inter-unit level, as well as the setup times that could interfere with the passage from one phase to the other, from one unit to the other. That's why the work breakdown structure is so effective in estimating the times of both the units and their components. The work breakdown structure, WBS, help identify resources requirements for each of activity. So it's very important to have a structured way for dealing with every single task and subtask. And as we were saying, it's not just about timing, it's about resources as well. In order to depict this situation, it's important to clarify some coding which is usually extensively exploited in the work breakdown structure. So we have the job number, which means that each job is going to be coded with a specific number. The job number is made of a specific set of digits and subdigits that explain the hierarchy relations among tasks and subtasks. Then we have the description, the nominal description of tasks and subtasks. So if we consider N as a job number, we could consider T and ST for the description of the tasks and the subtasks. Then we have the network code. As we will see in next class, when we're dealing with the second part of the implementation phase, the work breakdown structure could be expressed in terms of network relations among tasks and subtasks. So if we consider a flow of relations, the network code is identifying the part of the network where the activity is being developed. Days to complete, DC. As we were saying moments before, each task requires a time, each subtask requires some specific time. The sum of the subtasks plus the coordination time and the waiting time makes the overall time of a specific task or activity. This is another aspect which is coded and explicitly reported in the work breakdown structure. Precedence P. The work breakdown structure is able to show which activities should come first and which activities should wait for the others to be completed. So the idea of precedence, which is embedded in the work breakdown structure, is based on the assumption that in order to deploy some activities, we should develop some necessary inputs coming as outputs of our sub-activities. Then we have labor required, LR. So it's not just about activities, as we were saying, but it's about the materials and the human resources employment within the project. So just to show you an example how a work breakdown structure could be represented, if we consider an industrial project, this table is showing an hypothesis of a work breakdown structure. So the first column represents the number, the job number. As you can see, we can have 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. We have three main tasks. Then we have 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, which are the subtasks of the connected general task. So 2.0, it's a task which is labeled structure. Let's consider whatever structure, and the subtasks are related to the sub-activities related to the creation of a structure. Framing, interior finish, painting. NC stands for network code, as we were saying. DC stands for days to complete. As you can see, each subtask has a specific indication of days to complete them. Then we have the precedence, or conversely, we have the priority of these activities. So we have some codes here, B, F, G, and other letters, showing what is the level of precedence that these subtasks might have within the work breakdown structure. And then we have the labor required. Let's consider these numbers as the expression of whatever labor measurement or units. We could consider 2, 4, 3, 2 people, or hours, or days, or, as in most cases, the job equivalent in terms of timing, or the human resources equivalent in terms of timing. So 2 for site development, according to the standards that we adopt for structuring these activities, might mean 2 equivalent workers' day, and so on. As you can see, the same example could be taken for the activity number 3, for the task number 3. So number 3.0, task electrical and piping, and then 3 subtasks, install panel, rough electrical and piping, finish electrical, which are different stages 1, 2, and 3 of the same main activity. So 3 specific subtasks of the same main task. And again, we could have a different coding for the network structure. We could have different indications about the days to complete such a subtask, different precedents, and at the end, different requirements in terms of labor units or labor equivalent units. So, as you can see, by referring to a simple table, we can depict the necessary tasks and subtasks for framing the implementation phase. As we were saying in the beginning, this was just the first class about the implementation phase of a project investment. In next class, we will start from this point and we will see some advanced analysis models and some advanced tools for the implementation phase. For any further information, you can refer to the website as usual. Thank you.